Hello everybody and welcome back for another video. Today I'm going to cover a game by the world's youngest grandmaster, Gukesh, who just became a grandmaster, second only to Karyakin. And I thought Praggnanandhaa would have been the world's youngest grandmaster, but this player is also quite outstanding as well. I want to read an article that was on chess.com that said to achieve his grandmaster title, Gukesh had set off on a world tour playing every tournament he got his hands on. In fact, from his first IM norm till his third GM norm, Gukesh has played a huge 30 tournaments in the last 16 months. He has played around 276 games in 13 countries. He was supported by his parents, I guess a donor, and also a chess school. I guess he had some sponsors too. So again, this kind of makes my point that in order to improve, you really have to make a huge effort over the board. These players aren't getting there by playing definitely online, although they're very strong online. And also, it's very interesting to see the comments from their coaches, where he says his strategic supremacy and his unique strategic understanding make him stand out. His ability to grasp and willingness to learn will make sure he goes a long way. So it's not necessarily the book knowledge that these players are getting, it's the exposure from their coaches to concepts, and maybe they read them in books, but it's really learning how to apply it over the board that makes them strong. So let's get into the game here. Before I do, I just want to say thank you for all the generous donations I've received. I'm going to start a running list on this channel that I've seen some other YouTubers do because I really appreciate all the donations that help support this channel. I did go through and kind of re-update some of the graphic elements, and also somebody said to launch a Patreon. Well, I'm not going to launch a Patreon because I want to keep this channel basically free. I want all the content, all the best content, and I don't want to put it behind a paywall or anything like that. I probably will make some PDF or I guess ebook, something to purchase along with like an outline of a course that I have planned. I have been working on a long course, but I'm going to release it for free on this channel so that people have that. And also, I want to add that I did launch a chess store. If you want to support this channel in that way too, you can get some cool chess apparel that I launched, and I'll include a link below in this video and also on the top of my channel. So let's get into the game. So the game starts with knight to f3, Gukesh is white, knight to f6, and we just see basically a ready opening with a double fianchetto. Really not much theory here. Both players just develop. We see c4 just gaining some space in the center, castles. And now this dark square diagonal, light square diagonal kind of cuts through black's position. We just see some trades now. And basically, black and white are on equal footings, although white does have a slight advantage because of his strong bishops, as well as this bishop here, contesting it, which is a good way to basically trade off some bishops. So that's a good point too, strategically. When you are the opponent and you see your opponent have a strong bishop diagonal, what you want to do is you want to oppose that bishop and trade it to neutralize any strength that they may have. We see an interesting operation here. Now black can't take with the knight because we would see checkmate, so tactics work there. Now I want to just make a point about this game. This is really how normal strong players win games. There's really no combinations or anything really amazingly deep, I would say. Basically what they're doing is they're using basic tactical operations to achieve some strategic point. And in this case, Gukesh uses it to win a bishop over a knight advantage, and which is subtle but becomes a factor in this game. All right, so after these moves, takes, and then obviously the knight was covering g7. So now after some trades, white has this light square bishop versus kind of inactive knight. He just uses it to develop his pieces, and it looks like he's going to go for some play on the d file if black plays e6, but we just see some standard moves here. Now a5 is a very important strategic device for black, undermining the queen side and also giving space to his rook You'll use this a lot if you're trying to counteract your opponent's center advantage or a kingside attack. Of course, this knight is rather inactive, so he has to get it back. Bishop comes back. But notice even with the bishop all the way back, it's still putting pressure all the way on the queen side. A very important specific property of the bishop. Alright, so after some rook moves, we see that play has developed along the c-file, and black is really trying to go for the d5 push here. And now we see a3 preparing to meet something like a4 with b4, and hopefully getting c5. But we'll see what happens here. What do you think White should play here? White's in a little bit of a bind, although he has an advantage because of the bishop. He uses his bishop to restrict black's activity, provoking e6. And immediately we see queen to d2, switching his strategic focus to attacking this d6 pawn. Now, black would love to play d5, but it's still kind of a problem because of the pin, as well as the c-file, the double rook c-file. So now we see a mistake by black, playing a4, trying to undermine this pawn, but white just plays b4 and the rook goes back. Now let's go back a move. So the correct move by black would have been to bring his knight out, and now the threat of a4 is very strong, because if he plays b4, then the knight can take, hitting the queen. And we definitely can't play f4 trying to chase it away, because we get this discovery of the queen check and the rook, and actually black would win in that position. And now white would have to play a4, forever leaving this backward b3 pawn. And let's just keep going here. So instead we see the mistake, and now that allows white to chase black back, e4 preventing d5, bringing the bishop in with a discovery, blockading the pawn. And now we see queen to d4. So at this point, all of black's pieces and white's pieces are as active as possible, but white is actually ready for the c5 push. And now after the queen goes back, we see c5. He can't take because it would undermine taking the knight. So he has to suddenly go into defense mode. And now we see a very cool move, just a waiting move. White is basically completely ready to crush black. He has a plus 1.3 advantage, and that stems specifically from this pin on the d-file, and he's going to win a pawn at least if he stacks up. But instead he makes a waiting move just to see what black's going to do, because black really doesn't have any good moves in this position. And it's quite precarious. So he just plays a waiting move, preventing the knight from coming here, and black just goes back. Now, this was a mistake, but there's really no good moves in this position after queen takes. Now notice that the rook can't take this pawn because of first e5, and then if rook comes here, then we see b5. Or he could have just played b5 right away, and the knight is pinned, although he can come in like this, and he can get a fork, but after takes, white's a whole piece up with a very weak position. So let's go back. We don't see that line. Instead, we see black just play over. And this is the critical winning moment. If you want to pause it and try to figure it out, white to move. This is exactly what I was talking about in a previous video of using exchange sacrifices to break through. White would love to play e5 and consolidate this d6 pawn. Instead, we see rook takes, and now he can play e5. His opponent actually resigned after e5 because the c6 pawn will fall. White will have two protected passed pawns by the bishop, and he can even attack this pawn and get two connected passed pawns on the queen side. And there's no way that black can undermine this pawn because he'll just play f4, and it's a very rough position for black. So he didn't want to go through that torture, and he just resigned after bishop to c6 or bishop takes c6. The game would be all over. A very interesting position indeed. Thanks for watching Chess Diagnostic. I encourage you to subscribe and hit the bell so you receive all the notifications when I release a new video. If you want to support the channel, you can do so through PayPal, cryptocurrency, or you could check out the Chess Diagnostic apparel shop where I have all kinds of designs that I made myself for t-shirts, hoodies, and I'll add new designs weekly. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the future. Everywhere that you want to.